Okay, well, first of all, you fill out forms and give lots of references, families, and it took 3 months. It went from the orderly room and where I was in the company, up to the top, out into the field, back down to the FBI out in the field, and they went around asking questions. And I had neighbors tell me later that the FBI had been there, and one man that stuttered said, they asked me if you would keep it as a secret. I said, I know he could. But anyway, they did. They checked me out thoroughly because they asked me before. He said, do you have a clean record? And I said, yes, sir. But anyway, I with that top secret, when I got that, well, then I could handle any and all of. We had one big safe that had all types of rated, clear up to top secret stuff that I was eligible to handle and things like that. I was working there at post headquarters, and I had a good friend from Missouri, lived about 100 miles away in civilian life, that had come back from Korea, a master sergeant, but he worked in intelligence in another upstairs in another office. And one day he came down. He said, "Hey, Clarence," he said, "we just got in a request for Camp Polk to furnish 150 volunteers to go to these one of these atomic bomb tests out in the Nevada test sites." And it joins, Area 51, which isn't there, as they say, or never was. It was the top secret. On the west side of it was the Nevada testing grounds. He said they want 136 EMs or enlisted men and 14 officers. And I said, "Hey, that sounds like a winner. Why don't we go?" He said, "Fine. When I get back up there, I'll tell the major he's already got 2 volunteers." So we went out there, and had I known then what I know now, I would not have gone. You can't imagine what the atomic bomb is like. And after that, they came out with the hydrogen bombs. We had trenches 5 foot deep, 300 feet long, and each man had 3 feet. We put 100 men in each tray, and then on the front row, I was the 100th man, and I had my 3 feet to get in there. And when they started the countdown, when I got down to 18, I kind of wished I'd kept my mouth shut and my hands down in the first place, and I wouldn't have been there. But anyway, we were down on our hands and knees, all headed the same direction, and had our eyes squinted as tight as they would be closed, and then our hands over our eyes. And when that went off, I don't ever remember of a sound of any kind. But there was a most awful white light that I ever saw in my life. Came through my fingers, and I actually saw a portion of 2 bones in each hand, or two in each of 2 fingers in front of my eyes right there, just for a split second, just the white part of the bones. And right after that, then they said, well, before that, they said, we'll show you the biggest bomb we had in World War II. And they set off one of the old blockbusters. And it was about like shooting a firecracker after you saw the atomic bomb. But when as soon as they said we could open our eyes, as soon as that flash was over, we opened our eyes, and the trench was still weaving in and out and up and down a little, and some people appear and disappear, and that just lasted 2 or 3 seconds. But the fire and all of that had gone over us, and as we raised up and looked, we noticed that there was a big cactus. I think you pronounce it saguaro or something like that, with the arms. This one had 2 arms on it. It's probably 200 yards out in front of us. And the side we were looking at, the side away from the explosion, was just as green as it ever had been, and yet the whole thing was burning like it was soaked in gasoline from the other side. Oh, I forgot to tell you, the day before the shot, and this was the Upshot Not Hold series. There was every year they had a series, and then they had so many shots, and there was 13 shots in this one, and I was in the 11th one, which was called Harry, and it's the only one they had trouble with. The wind shifted on it and took the cloud kind of down over St. George, Utah, I believe it was, and created lots of problems. And a few years later, we received letters from the government that there had been so much testimony and given on all this deaths and illnesses from the radiation that we could tell anything we wanted to about the bomb because we didn't know anything that hadn't been told many times in court. Oh, I might add that only one person, the sergeant that was in charge of the troops on the ground, had a dosimeter or a measure of radiation on her chest, and that was the sergeant. He said, "Now we're going to get out and we're going to head towards ground zero." Well, I got ahead of myself. I got to go back and tell you that the day before, we took buses out into the desert, and we went up to what I would guess mile and a half from a 300-foot high steel tower. Now that would be hundreds of tons of steel, and on top of that tower was a black ball, and that was the atomic bomb. And when we got to walking towards ground zero after the shot, there was no sign of that tower anywhere. I guess it had been turned to gas and just let gone. But then that's hundreds of tons of steel just disappeared. But he said, "Boys, she's getting awful hot. We better turn around and get out of here." So we turned around and got out of there. And then, of course, we had tests, we had talks, many questions. Do you think you'll be able to father children and this and that and things like but after seeing what it did, I wouldn't ever volunteer for another one.
Now, at the time, what did you know about radiation and its side effects?
Not near as much as I knew later, because we learned a lot. Of course, we had classes before the shot, we had classes after the shot, and written tests and things. And then 6 months later, I was called into VA at Columbia and given a physical, which was quite a wait, I thought, but I still have, I'm legally blind. I've had problems in both eyes.
So they gave you no special equipment, no glasses or anything?
No, sir. After this, late in the year, on into the next year, we started our family, and I had 4 children. We had 4 children. My oldest boy died of cancer. The next son has cancer of the prostate. The next son has very serious heart troubles. And my daughter has cancer. So there's something there related with the radiation that apparently they weren't even conceived when I was at the shot, but we were all conceived after the shot. About 1989, I went to the doctor and he said, "I don't like what I'm seeing." And he called a specialist in Columbia, and then he came back in to see. He said, "Clarence, I want you to be in Columbia at this office." He gave me a card at this time. He said, "I see some problems in your eyes that I don't like." And that's when I started with the macular degeneration. And I had macular degeneration in both eyes. The master sergeant that came down and told me about this shot, he died a long time ago, and there's very few of us left. In February, this January this year, I received word from a nephew of mine in Kansas City that the Department of Defense was trying to locate some of the people that were still alive. And I called in, got a form, and I got in February, late February, I got the plaque giving me the title of Atomic Veteran, and I would like for you to read it.
It says, Department of Defense, United States of America, to all who shall see these presents, greeting. This is to certify that the Secretary of Defense has awarded the Atomic Veteran Service Certificate to Sergeant Clarence Dodd, Jr., United States of America, given under my hand in the city of Washington this 26th day of January 2023, signed Secretary of Defense.
I have told my minister at my funeral I want him to tell the people they should remember that they are so lucky to live in a country like the United States of America. I have never, ever said no to my country nor my flag. And I'm proud that I served. I wouldn't take anything for being a veteran. So be proud of your country. Love it, your flag, stand up for it, and always be faithful. That's it.